Welcome back, sports medicine fans, to another exciting episode 72. We're moving quite quickly through these episodes. Now, welcome to my co-host, of course, Kelly Korchik, and our special guest, Matty Clarke, all the way down in Adelaide. I was going to say South Adelaide, but it's South Australia, which is Adelaide is in. Mate, how you going? And thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm going really well.
Okay, nice. What have you been up to this morning? How's the clinic been?
Yeah, it's been a little bit quiet this morning, as I was just saying off air. I had a couple of DNAs, which is always a little bit frustrating. But no, yeah, this morning's been pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Good to hear that though, I think, because I feel like sometimes you get in your head a bit about DNAs and you're like, oh, it must be me, like I must suck and all those sorts of things. So it's good to hear that, like a very, very well-versed podiatrist still gets them.
Oh, I get them all the time. I've got plenty of pink in my diary, unfortunately.
Good. We'll get cracking into these questions. But mate, tell us, like, what do you do? Like, where do you work? What's kind of been your journey to where you are now?
Yeah, so I'm a podiatrist at the Sports and Arthritis Clinic. So I work for Michael Nishke, who's been a previous host on this show, and very renowned running podiatrist here in Adelaide too. I've been working here now for a tick over 2 years. I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity when I first moved over to Adelaide. I'm originally from Melbourne. I moved over here, was looking for some work, and Michael, obviously being in that running space, he does very well for himself, and I guess he wanted to expand a little bit, and brought me on and kind of trained me up to where I am now. A little bit more about myself too. So I'm a elite level runner. So I went to the Tokyo 2021 Olympic Games for the 3,000 meter steeplechase, and I'm part of Team Tempo. So I'm coached by Adam Diddick, who was also a previous host on this show, and Jess Stenson as well is one of my training partners, who was also another host,
I was thinking previous
guest on this show.
Yeah, we're just making our way through Adelaide, I think, by the sounds of it.
Through there. Yeah, all the runners in Adelaide. That's good. So
yeah, we'll have to get you guys over sometime.
Yeah, well, I don't know I'm sure, I hope Adam listened to his episode, but I don't know if he remembers this. He did tell me at the end of the episode, and he said it on air. He said that the next time that we're down, then I would be able to lead a session 1-400, he reckons. I might need maybe 300 head start, but I might be able to run the train, he said.
Yeah, for sure. Come down. Everyone's always welcome.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like such a good environment down there. It's awesome. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about kind of juggling, and we might as well just kind of ask that now. Like, how do you juggle work and training when obviously training is a big part of your life, and when you've also got such a great, by the sounds of it, training environment, and you train with lots of people? And a question that we get quite a lot is, how do you find time when you work clinically as a health professional and juggle things outside of that? And for most people, it's usually some form of sport like running or rugby league or that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'd say the number one thing's got to be that Michael gives me a lot of flexibility here at Spark. So I'd say I'm very fortunate to have one of the very few bosses. I think he prefers the term colleague, but I still call him my boss. Bosses that fully understands what I do and the demands that I need. And so I work only part-time here. So I'm about 20, 25-hour weeks. And then I go away for big chunks of the year as well. So I'll head over to Europe for about 3 months of the year. And then I have like a lot of scattered weekends away and little bits and pieces here and there. In terms of juggling it, again, I'm really fortunate again. He was pretty good on letting me kind of pick my timetable and let it grow to fit around my training. And then he tries to just fit in the gaps. And so we try to kind of operate so that we always have a podiatrist on here at Spark between me and him. And then that's really good. So between those kind of like 20, 25-hour weeks, I can fit in what I need to do training wise, and recovery wise as well. And I reckon a bit of a hidden gem with podiatry too, which I reckon we get a little bit more of compared to physios, is that we're on wheelie chairs. And I reckon wheelie chairs are super underrated with recovery, because you're not super sedentary where you're just sitting there like in one position. You're still moving your legs around, but you're not weight bearing. So I reckon that little bit helps too.
Such an interesting
Those
one. I've
one
never heard
percenters,
that.
hey?
Yeah, that's
There's
a one
little one
percenter.
percenters. Yeah, because I always found I worked hospitality and retail through uni. And you're just on your feet for so long. Like I'm sure it's good for like your spinal shape and all that standing up, but your legs just get absolutely shredded by the end of the shift. But then like obviously like we'd all see like plenty of sedentary office worker people that are just stuck in that same position that has problems itself. Whereas I feel like the wheelchair, it fixes all that.
I could just imagine you like speaking with a patient going, yeah, let's just go outside and watch you walk, and you're just on your chair going out there going, I can't put any more stress through my legs right now.
Got to save the legs.
Yeah.
And how did your running career start, Matt? Well, when did you start running and how did it start to turn into that, elite pathway?
Yeah, so it was a little bit by accident. So I guess my running journey started probably mostly in high school, where I had a couple of years where I took it seriously around 14 and 15. I mean, like semi-seriously, like for a 14 or 15-year-old. I'd do like 2 sessions a week and a race on the weekend, and then went to nationals once. And then I started getting really bad shin splints. And I guess my way of dealing with it at the time was just to quit the sport for 2 years. So I didn't really start running again until I was 19. So after I finished school. From there, my goal was just to break 4 minutes for the 1500. So all the kind of top guys at school, if you could break 4 minutes, that was kind of like really elite territory. That's what all the best guys at like APS Sports Day were doing. And I knocked that out of the park kind of just in my first year back. So I was like, all right, well, we'll just add slightly bigger goals, whether that be, make the state 1500 meter final, make the national 1500 meter final, make World Uni Games. And then eventually it ended up being like, hey, I think I'm a shot for making a major Australian team. And I was chatting to my coach at the time. I was living in Melbourne at this point. So I was coached by Justin Rinaldi, who you might know. He coaches Peter Bowl. As well as many other really good 800 meter runners. And he said, look, I think with where you're at in the 1500, you're probably not going to make the team for that. But there's a gap in the team at the moment in the steeplechase, and there's a gap at the moment in the 10K. So like which path do you think you'll go down? I kind of thought like I'm a pretty coordinated guy. I played a lot of cricket and other sports through school, and I was always pretty good at PE and stuff. So like I reckon I can learn to jump. So I learned to jump and practice that heaps, and then I just transitioned really well. So that all clicked for me. I made World Uni Games that first year that I moved to the event, and then I guess the rest is kind of history from there. Yeah, as I said, I accidentally fell into it.
Are you really tall? Like we've watched you race a few times. You look very tall. I feel like that would help with steeplechase, surely.
I reckon I look taller because I run around with Isaac Hayne a lot. So he's really short. He'd probably hate me saying this. He listens to the podcast. Yeah, it's all perspective. No, I'm relatively on the taller side. I'm 6'1".
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I reckon that helps a little bit with steeple.
Yeah.
With the steeple, can you run us through like what it is, what the event is, and like what you need to do, how it works, and then a little bit like what do you need to be able to do that? Because I'm suggesting and thinking you're very much making it simple by saying you just learn to jump and then you sweep. Because we watch it and we'll watch you do it a couple of times, and it's like, man, your Achilles and things, it's under some stretch shortening cycles doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I guess you don't want to scare too many athletes off and tell them too much of the intricate details of it. But I reckon it's the coolest event on track. Like it's so dynamic. So basically it's a 3,000 meter event. So usually on a track that's 7.5 laps. Because the steeple with the water pit though, so and this is where steeple becomes different to just 7.5 laps around the track, is we have 5 barriers that we jump every lap. So we have 4 normal roadblock looking things that you can put your foot on, unlike another hurdle, and push off. For men, they're 91.4 centimeters. The 5th jump is through water. So we jump on that barrier, push off, land in water, and then run off through there. Now, where it gets interesting is that you can't put that where the normal track is. So it either goes on the inside or the outside of where the normal track is. So we either run roughly about just shy of 400 meter laps if it's on the inside, or we run about 420, 430 meter laps if it's on the outside. But the reason I reckon it's like a little bit more dynamic and a really interesting event, and I love it, is that unlike a normal event where I guess you can make a move anywhere you want and people can cover you, you get these small windows of opportunity in the steeple, which is obviously 5 times a lap. Where if you make a move behind someone and you jump over the barrier at a faster pace than them, they can't do anything for a split second while they see you go past. So it adds that extra tactical element, that extra skill element that a lot of other running, at least middle distance and distance running events, don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. How do you find that, like, break, like when you're jumping over the barriers and it's breaking up that rhythm? That's quite difficult, I'd imagine, to get back into your pace, and that would probably add a whole different element of fatigue on the legs when you're running that distance.
Yeah, like, and I think a lot of people when they start off, that's the obvious barrier to it, excuse the pun. But I guess as you kind of practice a little bit more, you view them more as this is how I view it now, is I view it more as opportunity. So I kind of get a bit of a rush, like when I'm jumping well and moving past people and hurdling better than them and pushing off the water, making up little positions. You get a bit of a rush and you feel good doing it. It's kind of like, I guess, when you're playing golf or for means of another sport. I use golf analogies a lot. If you're hitting the ball really well, it feels good to do it, even though like that's the hard part, of course. Like getting around the golf course for most golfers is pretty easy. If you're hitting well, it feels good, and so it gives you a rush. And it's the same thing in steeple. If you're steepling well, it gives you a bit of a rush, and you kind of draw on that momentum psychologically to kind of like push you through. I also find probably it even breaks the race up a little bit for me. So sometimes, like I find the 5K just so difficult because you're running really fast for a long period of time, and it's just relentless pace for a long time. Whereas the steeple, you're not really putting yourself in that zoned out well as much because you have to stay alert and focus on those barriers, which kind of takes your mind off that fatigue at times, I reckon.
And what's the idea behind the last one, landing in water?
I haven't researched the event enough to know. I guess just make it more difficult and interesting and make tracks more expensive to build.
Yeah, right. Is that the hardest one to jump, do you think?
Nah, like actually, so when I went to it, so I'm not a hurdler from like background. Like when I did little lats, I did like obviously the more distance events. Like I'm a pretty skinny frame. I actually did a little bit of triple jump at state level, but I didn't do any hurdles. So I actually found the water jump was the easiest one to pick up because it's more of a two-step process. So you jump up, put one leg on the barrier, push off, land and go. Whereas in the normal hurdling technique, it's a bit more of a complex like transitional rhythm. You have to kind of put your foot up, glide over it, and land on that foot and then go kind of thing. So it's like I actually found hurdling took a bit longer to get right than the water jump. The water jump came quite naturally.
Interesting.
What changes like training wise for like steeple versus track for road? I guess, and I would think maybe it's categorized into like what running changes are there, and then in the gym as well. Like you're doing different stuff, or you're more in the gym to be more explosive, and then what changes on the running side?
Yeah, so I think look, you obviously need to be springy, like particularly like for your lower leg, like most runners do, but like even more so in the steeple because you're quite literally jumping more. But saying that, it probably naturally filters out people that aren't springy anyway. So I'd say everyone in steeplechase has some pretty good natural spring as opposed to really specifically needing to work on it. In terms of training for it, look, the fitness and the physiology element's basically the same. So like when I started it, I kept the same running coach at the time in Justin, and then Steve Fabris was like my specific hurdles and technique coach. But the fitness and the training is the same. The only real difference is that you obviously just need to practice jumping under fatigue. So you chuck some sessions in when where you usually do say 400 or 600 reps, you do hurdle specific reps. And the way Adam kind of does it is when we're focusing a little bit more on fatigue and sighting, we'll have the hurdles a bit more in the start of the session. When we're focusing on keeping our focus and fatigue and jumping on fatigue, we'll put the hurdles more at the end of the session. So and then on Monday I'll do a specific technique session where it's just fresh and it's like practicing kicking goals perfectly kind of thing. You just got to nail them.
Yeah. And anything different in the gym? Like do you do more like plyometric stuff or?
No, not really. I started getting into more plyometrics, but my Achilles has been a bit funny the last kind of year or so. So Look, Adam would probably love me to go into the gym more and do a bit more, and I probably should, but probably recently I only really use the gym just to rehab little aches and pains here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. Must be needed to do more stretching for your Achilles. That's probably it.
It's funny. I used to stretch out my left one a lot. I think it's like a habitual thing to do. Like, this is a bit sore, I'll just stretch it out all the time. I went to the US, I stretched it every single day. And I've got a heaps better knee to wall now on my left foot than my right foot.
No.
Yeah, I know, it's not great.
Oh,
Need to even
funny.
them back out.
Yeah, you just need to, just stretch the other one heaps and heaps and let the other one get tight again.
Yeah.
That's good. And this is one of the questions I wanted to, and I'm actually asked you guys this, and I messaged both you and Nita this question because and it doesn't happen too often because I don't see a ton of track athletes, but talking about like spikes, can you give us a bit of the elevator pitch crash course in them? Like, do they fit into categories and how do they work with the lower limb? I just see the ones that are got some zoom foam and then the ones that are really stiff, and that's about all that I know.
Yeah, so I guess I categorize them a bit differently to running shoes. Just because like there's just not really the amount of like range out there as what jogging shoes are. So I categorize them more into, I guess the easiest way is event specific. And then looking at of those event specific ones, why they're made in that event specific way. So I guess if you're using for performance elements, then it's a bit of a no-brainer. You kind of just pick the event you're doing, and then you just go through which one probably subjectively feels best to help you achieve what you need to do. If you're looking at it from a more of a therapeutic way, it's a little bit different. So then you're gonna have to kind of start looking at, okay, so what makes these spikes in this event category, and what are the kind of like, I guess, byproduct effects of that? So an example of that would be the sprint spikes, for example. They're designed to go, like say, power sprint spike. So the Nike Max Flow would be a good example. They're designed to go really fast in a flat line, and look, they're designed to kind of just hold up around the bends. But if you look at the outsole surface area of them, they're quite narrow, particularly through the midfoot. So if we're getting someone who's like, say, a sprinter who might be struggling with some tib post type issues, and like there's quite an aggressive drop on that shoe, plus some stiffness, plus a lot of like medial like cutout as well, maybe getting them to train in something like a Nike Dragonfly that has a bit more outsole surface area and has a little bit more of a stable, secure upper kind of around bends might help a little bit more with that. So even though the shoe is not specifically designed to provide more stability, the byproduct of it kind of being designed for more 5K, 10K gives that. So it creates like a good training option for it. So I probably categorize and look at them more as event specific groups, and then kind of understanding why they're made for that group helps me use them from a therapeutic side.
Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, so I'm with ASICS. So I've been using the ASICS Metaspeed MD. I don't know if it's going to get released or if it's still a prototype phase, but that's the white spike that I've been wearing. So that's kind of a how do I explain? It's like a PIBA. I think pretty sure anyway. It's a PIBA midsole with a 6-spike configuration and then a double plate. So it's got the spike plate on it and then a carbon plate that runs all the way through. At least it looks like that anyway. I've been given the official specs on it, but that's kind of how it feels. Yeah.
Are you able to fit I've fitted a couple of things in the past. Like, do you guys, when you're trying to offload, fiddly forefoot or lateral or medial structures, do you use little inner soles or pads and things in them and find they fit okay, or you just don't bother because it's such a short period of time they're in them?
Yeah, I have before. Look, I probably like if someone's in the phase where it's more as a training thing, I'm just getting them just to train in flats.
Yeah.
I just find it's safer and easier for them to do it that way. But if they're struggling with, say, like a really angry tendon or something that we need to offload, and they've got like a race, like say on the weekend, there's no time to do it, there's no other way of doing it, then like that's where having the orthotic lab out the back here at Spark, I think, makes a huge difference. So you can make like specific low stack kind of like wedges and stuff that you can squeeze into the shoes and just tape them on there temporarily. So that we can like adjust or offload certain areas like in spikes as well. But I probably wouldn't do it commonly. Like people, I'd say most runners don't really want to go race if they're in a considerable injury anyway. Like they don't mind probably running with a niggle, but I'd say when they're like seriously properly injured, unless it's a huge event coming up, which is rare for Adelaide. We've got the Adelaide invite, but it's not like the Olympic Games or national champs or anything. Most of them will probably just choose to sit out the event.
Yeah, it's fair. What, like, and talking about, I guess, the running patient, and it's a very open-ended question, but how do you tend to, I guess, for the average runner that comes in and for the clinicians that are listening to this, that's seeing and treating runners, how do you look to modify someone's training, their running training, without telling them to stop? Like, are there categories, or how do you tend to do that, and you find what works?
Yeah, so I guess it depends a little bit on, I guess, what we're trying to achieve. A lot of the time, I like to keep people going because I explain to them that we want to avoid a boom bust cycle. So like as you'd probably see, like the vast probably majority of people who are coming in with injuries are probably from some kind of boom bust cycle. And so particularly for things like, I see a lot of shin splints. I feel like that one's super sensitive to that deloading, reloading all the time. And so what we'll do is I will kind of work out kind of what structures under stress, whether that be a proximal structure, whether that be a distal structure, whether that's stressed by more durational loads, whether that's stressed by more peak loads, and then just minimizing that a little bit and targeting gains on the other end of the spectrum. So an example of that would be like the Achilles is the easy one. If someone's struggling with like a really raging Achilles tendon, or maybe not raging Achilles tendinopathy, but an ongoing niggly Achilles tendinopathy, and they're really struggling like with the faster VO2 max work, then we'll look at kind of keeping their long runs going, maybe cutting back how many sessions they're doing a week, kind of having at least 72 hours between sessions, and maybe targeting more of a threshold model for a few weeks just to let it settle down. As well as
thresholds just underneath.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So thresholds, kind of slightly. It's kind of like your half marathon pace running versus like your 10K pace running.
Yeah, and you. Oh, sorry, you go, Kelly.
No, I was just going to say, Jess Stenson, when she came on a few weeks ago, said a very similar thing, like in regards to some of those soft tissue injuries, that consistency is the most important thing. And I think that a lot of the time when we hop on here on the podcast and say, look, trying to keep people running is really important, we don't just mean that from a point of view of all runners are crazy and just need to keep running. Like, it's actually the best thing for their body and their injuries and their tendons and their shin splints and things like that, and TSS to keep them going as well. So
100%. Like I find like one of the things I'm always most nervous with is when someone's got an injury, even if it's like, say, a super minor injury, like let's say someone's just done like a very low grade ankle sprain. They've gone to like a GP who's like not super musculoskeletal focused, and they've just booted them for say like way too long, like 4+ weeks kind of thing. And then like they've come in, you're like, we need to get you out of that. And then like you just get so much globalized deconditioning from that like I think that almost makes it more tricky than like just keeping people going and just adjusting their loads a little bit.
How do you go telling people, like, what factors, I guess using the Achilles as an example, what factors do you give them to think about to kind of self-modify? Like if it is too sore or flare-ups, that kind of thing. And how do you see that even just with the group that you run with? Like, are people generally, everyone's dealing with a niggle here and there, like a little bit of pain is normal when you're doing that amount of running or that level?
Yeah, so I guess and I have different conversations with different people depending on what level they're at and what their kind of goals are at the time. But I'd say for a normal patient, I'd see, I kind of explain, and let's say they're chasing some kind of performance goal. So whether it is like, I want to do a marathon, I want to do it under this time, and it's going to be a challenge for me. Then a lot of the time they want to push the envelope somewhat. So I kind of explained that I used it the other day, is that ongoing pain in a certain spot's probably not normal and something we want to address. But along this journey of kind of building your base, building your fitness, pushing the envelope a little bit, it's okay to have small niggles here or there as long as we address them and we get over them. That conversation's probably going to change a little bit though when we're like, say, talking to someone who's like quite like really experienced runner, because I don't really want to scare them off, say if they're leading into like a national champs and they've had like this ongoing Achilles tendinopathy for the last 12 months or whatever, to say like, oh, specific pain's not normal. Like we really, really want to address that. Like I want to make sure they're reassured going into this race. I don't want to be scaring them off by saying that. I'll probably say something more along the lines of like, look, this thing's like ongoing for you, but what we want to do is we want to get it into a position that you can perform at your highest level kind of thing. And so the conversation changes a little bit depending on who I'm dealing with and what they've got coming up.
Yeah.
And how do you utilize footwear and orthotics when you are having those sorts of conversations?
Controversial. Every podiatrist in Australia is listening right now. You're up for this big question. Kevin Kirby's listening right now.
Yeah, shoes have been fantastic since I've kind of got into podiatry, because there's just so much range out there. So it's probably something I utilize a lot more than orthotics. I think whenever I do an orthotic, unless someone's already in a suitable shoe that it's going to work for, I'll often use them with a shoe recommendation as well, because I kind of look at it as more of like the foot environment rather than this is your orthomechanic environment, or this is your orthotic environment, or this is your shoe environment. It's a whole globalized thing. Your body doesn't, as far as I know anyway, your body doesn't really know if it's an orthotic or a shoe under your foot.
Oh, if you know how to prescribe them, it does. No, I'm joking.
And yeah, I mean, unconsciously kind of thing. But anyway, I use them a lot in combination, and I use them specifically, I guess, for similar and different things depending on what it is. I think shoes are really good when we're looking at sagittal plane pathologies, especially like those stiff rocket varieties. I don't think they've quite consistently nailed the specific needs for some of the frontal plane pathologies we need. That's where I think orthotics come in really handy. Like I do a lot of wedging, so whether we be tilting people like medially or laterally, and they're like more of their like rear foot region kind of thing, I find that works really well. Or I'll just use orthotics for more to management. So in the forefoot, I'll use a lot of cutouts and stuff just to manage plantar pressures.
Yeah,
I think that's really helpful for other clinicians that don't know their way around an orthotic, like us physios, just to really simplify that and say, you know, maybe shoes is an easy thing to think about when you are dealing with something in that sagittal plane, but you know, probably thinking earlier rather than later to refer on to podiatry if we are dealing with a pathology that is more in the frontal plane.
Yeah, and I think orthotics are one of those things that maybe there's a lot of inconsistency over, like even in the podiatry world, and like how to prescribe them. But I think I kind of picked up when I started working here, like one of the sports physicians here, he uses a lot of just like foam and felt padding, like in shoes. So like whether that be like, again, like basically like to wedge people medially or laterally, and he gets pretty good results around that. And I think that kind of showed that you don't have to be as specific sometimes on like the angles and stuff, like in the rear foot to what a lot of people get caught up on. I think you kind of just need to know that, yeah, you're probably, as long as you kind of got the right idea and you can adjust a little bit as needed. So for example, if you've done a bit too much, take a bit out. And if you've done too little, add a bit more, based on like how those kind of dosage effects are on it. I think podiatrists should probably like really like not be too scared of them and get into them, because like they're a massively powerful effect. And you would have seen, Blake, and potentially you too, Kelly, that sometimes you put an orthotic in for someone, they go for a run, it's almost like immediate pain reduction for a lot of different pathologies.
Yeah, I mean, Kelly's got a really, don't know if we can say this online and present medical information, but Kelly's got the highest arch in Australia, possibly the world. And she had a peroneal tendinopathy, and we wedged her laterally, and she felt heaps better, like instantly.
Yeah, that just makes me, I was amazed.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? And it sparked I didn't actually put this into the question, but it sparked my curiosity. One thing that I really struggle with from footwear is finding a shoe for the real lateral loader cavus foot type. Like, are there shoes that you would recommend? And I know it's hard to say a specific shoe generally for anyone, but shoes with lateral stability that you can, you know, run in. It's a bit of a fun shoe, or anything really with any lateral stability other than a Brooks Dyad.
Yeah, it's in terms of fun shoes, it's really tough. So like two shoes that straight away come to mind is the new Asics Cumulus just has the biggest lateral and medial even, like, but specifically like for that lateral flare that I've ever seen. Like, it's huge. Like, this thing just completely flares out. So that's a Cumulus 25. That thing, as soon as you put it on, you feel that nudging you more into eversion, I think, on the lateral foot. So that works really well. Traditionally, I've used the Nimbus Light as well. That one's got a good lateral flare, but like it's a bit tricky. Like, there's those kind of really pronounced lateral flares. They're both relatively medium stack shoes. Like, they're not those something like, say, an Asics Super Blast or a New Balance Super Comp Trainer with those like 45 plus millimeter stack heights. They're just not quite there yet. Like, something like a Super Blast has so much like outsole surface area, you could probably still make it work. But those really like specific ones to target that lateral flare, they're more only in like a medium stack shoe for now. But I mean, like, you can still modify it. Like, you can chuck some heel raises in as you need and adjust some running load. Like, like high stacks only one element prescription. There's so much more multifactorial things that you can do for someone other than just prescribe a super high stack shoe.
How do you, or what would you say now? I'll tell a little bit of a story. My running, I'm probably on the verge at the moment of becoming an elite runner after I've figured out the key to endurance running, which is just run in the zone 2 all the time. I've read one book.
I've heard about this.
And certain people don't agree with it, but that's right. They have to agree with the science. What characteristics do you think someone really needs to focus on to improve their running, just generally, whether it be performance or just consistency of running?
I think nailing the consistency at the start's got to be the no-brainer. Like, if you're getting interruptions all the time, like, you're just not going to be able to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. And at the end of the day, like, whether you're chasing, time in zone 2, whether you're chasing better economical gains at a certain pace, whether you're trying to chase whatever it is, better speed, better distance, whatever, you need to formulate some kind of structure around being consistent and putting the foundations in place first. That comes easy for some people. Like, I'm pretty fortunate. I rarely get any lasting injuries, so I can just kind of get myself to the mileage overnight, basically, that I need to be at, and then put the sprinkles on top straight away. For other people, they need to just focus on, slowly building that mileage and working in their safe zone a bit more. Or it might not even be mileage. It might even be like working in whatever zone that is, to like stay in their safe zone, get that consistency, build up that tissue resilience, even build up a little bit of fitness too. So you're recovering a little bit better between running, and then chuck the sprinkles on top, kind of as you want the performance gains as needed. Even like, there's even some things like, like you look at a lot of marathon runners and they do specific builds up to their marathon. And I guess, like, from a physiological point, you'd be talking about, you get that big, like, kind of boost in training stimulus, but it's also too that, like, they may not be able to handle that higher load of training all year round. Like, it's a massive caloric demand. It's hard to eat that much food all year round and recover all that time. Like, part of finding consistency too might be like, okay, maybe I can only go hard for periods of the year, so I've got to save that for when I need it.
And I find as well, another aspect of improving your fitness comes from the intensity and starting to introduce sessions. And lately, I can just think of quite a few patients that I've seen come in through the clinic who have gone from, building up that consistent mileage, what you were just talking about, and then they've started to introduce some sort of speed work, and that's what's kind of tipped them over the edge and brought them into the practice. What's a sort of simple or I don't know, easy principle to follow in regards to, maybe that's the wrong word, maybe it can't be easy, but what's some sort of principle to follow in introducing some intensity into training loads?
I mean, a good little trick I have is I just make the recoveries really short for people, because then they just can't run fast. But I guess from a more, measurable way of doing it, and probably a safer way of doing it, is I think if you record if you're one of those people that is very sensitive to it, it's probably worth recording the amount of time you spend in that speed, and then just doing like your standard principles for gradual overload as needed. So like, for example, like let's say you've had one of those runners that has come in before, has their let's say their shins or whatever it is, like some kind of speed-based injury has flared up once they've started introducing speed. Have a look at like how much speed work that, or this person could be having a look at how much speed work they were doing leading in. They could look at reducing that, remaining at that level. If they're holding up to that, then adding a bit more, and adding a bit more, until they kind of get to the desired amount they need or can tolerate, kind of thing. And probably, I guess looking at as well the ratio they're doing between easy running and faster running. So a general principle I like to do is for more distance-based runners, even middle distance runners, like 80-20s, a good starting point in terms of not doing more than 20% fast and building up that 80% jogging to complement that. Some people do 90-10. Like if like I'm biased being a podiatrist, I see more injuries below the knee, so they are a little bit more speed-based injuries than durational-based injuries. But I have a lot of patients that I keep at 90-10 just to preserve those like plantar flexor type structures that are under stress. And then just working up from there, like if they need to, like they might be able to say do closer to 80-20 or more for specific times of the year, but they can't hold that for all times of the year because, say, something flares up. So I think measuring what you're doing so that you know where you're at and how much stress you're putting on certain structures in your body can be very useful when dealing with recurring injuries.
How, talking about kind of below the knee injuries, how do you manage plantar plate injuries? What's the gold standard so they all get better and nothing ever fails?
Oh, well, my 100% strike rate is, no, I'm just joking. I'm joking. Nah. Healthcare is, I say this to like a lot of patients. Healthcare is frustrating, isn't it? Because you try to give the gold standard, but it's very rare, if at all, the gold standard is 100% success rate. But I get relatively good success with I think stiffer plated shoes. So that straight away just dissipates the pressure in the forefoot. You're not getting that focal point of pressure as you're going up onto your toes through propulsion. As well, I get pretty good results from some orthomechanical therapy with like a Met dome and like a U cut out on the distal end. So just reducing those plantar pressures, pushing up on that plantar plate as well. Sometimes a bit of taping is quite useful too. So a little bit of ribbon taping just to hold that toe down if they're starting to claw. And then also just reducing the amount of speed work they're doing too. So again, like as you run faster, the main mechanism is to push your forefoot into the ground more, activate up before you start really sprinting. So that's up to, I think there's a study from, Michael's going to kill me here for not remembering this. But anyway, it showed up to about 222 kilometer pace, which is flying, right? The main mechanism to run fast is to push your forefoot into the ground more.
Oh, yeah.
So like just reducing how much we're doing that's going to reduce the pressure on the plantar plates as well, and reducing how much that toe is going into flexion.
Yeah.
Is plantar plate injuries quite common in track? Would you see that quite a lot?
Probably more in like older like athletes that are, I see it more in like kind of like my middle-aged men runners that have they've done running their whole life, and they may have been previous track athletes, and maybe they go to marathon now, or they're doing a 10K road, whatever it is. But I don't see it a lot in young athletes, but I've seen a few in like that kind of like 40+ age group.
Yeah. What's the most common thing that you see? You mentioned like shin pain is what you see the most?
Yeah, I did a few infographics on shin pain early on, and I got a few patients in from there, and I've just found them really satisfying to do. So I guess I've kind of accidentally marketed myself a lot into into MTSS. So I see a lot of MTSS, but then like I kind of like it's funny, like you guys would probably agree too. Like it almost feels like injuries tend to come in waves a little bit. Like sometimes I'll be seeing heaps of shins. Sometimes I'll be seeing a few Achilles. Sometimes I'll see heaps of stress fractures. And again, it comes in waves. Like I don't think I've seen a stressy this week. but then there'll be some days that I'll see like 3. But
Wow.
I'd say
Yeah.
probably mostly I do a lot of MTSS if consistently because I've just accidentally marketed myself that way.
Where are you sitting on the management of MTSS at the moment? I know we previously sort of thought that it was like the early stages of a tibial stress fracture, and now it's kind of shifting towards, no, it doesn't actually lead towards a tibial bone stress injury at all. So what's your current sort of thoughts around it?
I probably don't see that real traditional lower third one like move into a stressy, but I have seen one where someone was getting that lower third MTSS combined with a stressy in their higher tib. So like when they ended up going for MRI, they just had this massive line, almost like down 80% of their tibia that just showed like stress and MTS that was, stress all the way down the tibia kind of thing. So, so like that was an interesting one. But like, I mean, I think they were kind of 2 different things that just kind of happened and then came together at once, as opposed to like one thing like leading to the other. But yeah, like I probably don't see them turn into stresses a lot. I think because they're so painful, people tend to stop running before they can kind of really push. I mean, if it does continue, I'd say maybe if it did continue, it takes a special kind of person to push through that much pain and turn it into a stressy. I find a lot of the stressies that especially like that upper third one that you see on the tibia, they come on pretty quickly. People don't even I don't know, I haven't read it yet, but it may almost seem like they're similar to femurs in the sense that maybe there's a little bit of a delay of pain onset in them, and then they can kind of push through, do their hard training, and then by the time they're getting pain, there's already a little bit of damage there.
Yeah. And you just give them heaps of foot intrinsics to get that better.
Yeah, just make sure they're pushing through their big toe better. I'm joking.
Are you
big toe.
Are you typically resting someone with MTSS, or are you trying to keep them running as much as they can tolerate?
It's a conversation I have with them. So it depends on what they want to do. So we can go down 2 paths. If I always explain that progression's a parallel of function increase and pain decrease. Function increase and pain decrease. So I kind of explain to them, if we push through this, there's a good chance that pain's going to hang around for a long time. What I've read, it's about up to 100 days. But we can manage that. So over time, we want to kind of, modify your loads, modify your footwear, do some more mechanical therapy. And we want to slowly have your function increasing with your pain not, or your pain even just decreasing a little bit. Other people would just like, look, I don't play organized sport. I just say, go for a few jogs around the block. I like to keep fit and I like to walk the dog. I just hate being in pain. So those people, I'm like, well, you might as well just rest, and then we'll just restart your running program from there after. It's not going to be a huge break. It'd usually be like, I might give them 2 weeks kind of thing. And I usually say you can walk in the meantime. So it just depends on like what the person wants to do. But it's usually a conversation of, do you want to kind of keep your function going, or do you want to just decrease your pain? Which one do you want to do first?
Yeah.
I can't see your mouth, Kelly, and we need to figure out a way to be able to.
Because my nose is blocked, so I'm breathing through my mouth.
I wanted to ask you, because this is something that I certainly getting better with managing it, but just the heel pain in a runner, because again, every step they're reminded of, it's incredibly hard to offload. I've found over probably the last several months, it's becoming more confident with, saying that it's very unlikely that you're doing any damage, and you can probably continue to do everything that you want if it's not progressing and getting worse, and it'll just take a longer time to get better. It's just really slow to progress. How do you find do you see a lot of heel pain in runners, and any kind of ways that you manage it like differently, or it's a matter of just as long as it's not getting worse, which should get better over time, and we can adjust a couple of things outside of your running?
Yeah, like it's definitely, I usually when I've got a run with plantar heel pain, it's a conversation of we want to, especially when it's flaring, I'd say the major interventions are more around symptom management rather than like specific rehabilitation as such. I went to the Sports Medicine Australia conference, and I remember listening to Ebony Rio, and she kind of talked about when she her and Jill Cook talked about when they were doing their tendon rehabilitation, they like to think of things in 2 phases. They like to think of a settling phase and then a rehabilitation phase. And so that's the kind of conversation that I have with my runners, is like, we want to, if it's really flaring, we want to, and it's like obviously impacting what you need to do, then we need to kind of like you say, like give it that little cuddle, wrap it up, use your form orthotics or over-the-counter orthotics, kind of bring that ground up under the arch, decrease the plantar pressure under the heel, like decrease those compressive loads, heel pitch them a little bit. So just decrease those like plantar flexor loads, decrease the amount of pace they're running at. So like I'll usually pull their jogging pace back a little bit. And if they need, adjust their sessions a little bit as well. Like footwear, decreasing time in spikes, racing flats these days are okay because a lot of them are pretty stiff and rocketed, but assessing their racing flats anyway. Getting them into some like stiffer rocketed shoes. And then probably the 2 things that I really like to look at is the amount of time that like what they're doing with themselves outside of running. So I feel like there's a real cumulative type effect with symptoms if they're not wearing their form orthotics outside of their running. So a lot of my runners, sometimes I'll even tell them, don't even worry about running in the form orthotics. Like some of them just get that real cricket ball feeling in their arch and they're just like, I hate running in this thing. So I'll just say like, all right, well, let's just go heel pitch for your runners and still wear the form orthotics for everything outside of your running. We'll just decrease the running pace a little bit and really cuddling that foot from the moment we wake up in the morning to the moment we go to bed at night. UFOS slides are great if they don't want to wear shoes around the house. People love wearing them. And then the other one, which is a little bit more niche for track runners and for most of my plantar heel pain patients, I find most track runners I get, they get left foot. I get probably maybe 1 in 5 that's right foot. And I feel like that's something to do with turning left around the track. So there's this Japanese study that I did an infographic about.
Was it thickened fascia or something?
Yeah, they had a stiffer left foot than right foot. Yeah, and so it didn't really indicate whether that stiffness was an injury risk or whether it was an injury protector. But I think what it probably obviously does indicate is there's probably higher loads applied to that left foot. Like it's some kind of response to higher loads. So if they're getting in their left foot specifically and they're doing a lot of track work, sometimes getting them off the track and getting them to turn right, that helps their symptoms a lot. They're just not getting that real kind of eversion moment as they're kind of pulling their left foot around the track, turning anti-clockwise. I find that works quite well. That actually works quite well too when people are getting shin splints in their like MTSS in their left leg as well. Getting them to turn right really helps symptoms a lot. So like I get a lot of like recurring shin splints in my left. And I'll do like it's mind numbing, but I'll go out and do jogs around like the grass oval and I'll just run in a clockwise direction until my shin splints go away.
I've got a patient at the moment that's got a tib post on that side and they're a track runner.
Just get them. Yeah, get.
I've heard you say it before, but it didn't even come to mind. Yeah,
it's a bit more of a niche one. Like I don't hear a lot of people doing it, but I get really good results from it. Their pain like goes away pretty immediately. Or they get a reduction in pain immediately just from turning right. Yeah,
I feel like it's got some good buy-in too. Like if I was a runner and someone just said, "Yep, this is why," because you've been turning left too much. It's like,
it's real mechanical.
Amazing. Let's just go turn right.
I know. Like I reckon, like if I counted up how many laps I've done running clockwise around a track, I feel like I could probably count them on one hand. Like, whereas I feel like I've done thousands turning left. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, we had a couple of questions come in from listeners. I'll start with the first one, and it's not broad at all. The question is, how do you deal with lower limb tendon niggles? This person was asking, what should you do?
I'm guessing it's a plantar flexor tendon, so I'd probably be looking at like heel pitching, rocker sole shoes. If it's a perineal or a tib post, looking at like stability elements as well. Potential wedging if they need. And depending on the time of the year, I find like anti-inflams can work really well just to get you through like a small period if you've got a race coming up with those soft tissue injuries too.
Nice. And then someone asked as well, how should they incorporate heels into their running?
Depends kind of, I guess, a little bit on what you're
They're
trying to
very
use it
broad.
for.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
don't know the
very
person at
broad.
all.
Yeah. Yeah, like I guess if you're using it to manage an Achilles tendinopathy, stop doing them. But I guess if you're using it to increase your running economy, then like it's really broad. I guess it depends how you want to use it. Like if you're using it to increase your running economy, I guess you could do some strides up a hill after a Monday easy run or whatever, or you could do a hill session. Like there's heaps out there that you could look up what different athletes do. I reckon there's a little bit too if you're starting to run long too, like marathons, doing some of your long runs, maybe not super close to the marathon, but maybe in more of your base phase, doing some of your long runs over hilly runs can just help condition some of your proximal leg a little bit too to be like a stepping stone conditioning part to running long on roads.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And then favorite shoe and favorite workout.
Okay, so favorite shoe's got to be
Oh, wait.
ASIC. Yeah,
I was going to say you can't say the ASIC number one because Jess said that one. Is that the one you're going to say?
the number one.
She said the ASIC, the Metaspeed number one, version 1's her favorite.
Oh no, I was gonna say the
Brooks
Super
Beast.
Blast that just came out.
Blast.
Oh, the Brooks Beast, come on, live a little.
Yeah, Kelly, I think Kelly, that's going to be her next shoe.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard a few people talk about it now.
This shoe's so good. Like so many people have said so many good things about it, and it's really fascinating to hear. So I like we do a lot of work with specialty running retail around, and like they were saying they're not getting heaps good sales from it. But like everything I've heard, like I remember listening to the Inside Running podcast and Julian Spence. I think he used the term, "This is a unicorn shoe." Like you can just do everything. It's lightweight. You can run fast in it. It's stable. I found it was crazy durable. Like I got a pre-release pair like months ago, and because they delayed the release on them, I couldn't get a second pair. So I just ran this thing into the ground. I put like 800 kilometers into it, and I found. Like I've got a bit of a drop first, so I really kind of de-shaped the foam under my first, like compressed the foam under my first. But this foam's still bouncy. Like it's still fun to run in. So like I still kind of use it sometimes for an easy double or a warm-up shoe. I just swap the insole out every few hundred Ks for it. But yeah, it's incredibly durable as well. Like it's a really good shoe. I love it.
And you can run a little bit faster in it, I've heard as well. Like if you're doing a long run towards the end, you wanted to pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like I probably wouldn't use it for like really top end speed work because like it's still super high stack, so it just feels a little bit clunky around corners at really fast pace. But like it's really light and the upper's really secure on it. So if you do need to pick up the pace a little bit, it does a great job of it. Yeah.
And favorite workout?
Any workout when I'm really fit.
When they feel good, that's what I like them.
Yeah, when they feel good. I guess I hate doing speed work. Like you're a
zone 2 guy. You have to come do some zone 2 with me. That's the secret.
I do a lot of that. Like I guess my training's built a lot around I do a lot of long runs. I mean we do a lot of threshold work. Like I do a lot of like 8 to 10 by K. And we do a lot of like even when I do my track work, sometimes we'll tack a little bit of like I call it like free aerobic work. We track like a tempo or a threshold on before or after the track work too. But I guess I really like I guess I like what I'm good at, and that's more of that longer work. So whether that be Ks, sometimes when I'm going really fit and I actually do want a little bit more of intensity, we do this lactate clearance session that Adam does. So we do, I think traditionally it was designed that you don't have decreasing rep distance, but so that it gives us a bit more wiggle room and we can push a bit harder. He does decrease rep distance. So we'll do like 1200, 1K, 800, 600, 400, 200. And then we tack on at the end of every single rep, like a 200, like that's faster. And like when I'm doing a lot of hurdle work, we'll chuck 200 hurdles on there. And I just find when I'm really fit, I can just run super fast in that session. It gives me super confidence. I get heaps of like good mileage out of it. I just feel good about myself when I do it. Yeah. It's a real yeah, let's go kind of session. Yeah, I only ever do it when like I've got a race kind of in the relatively near vicinity too, which I think probably I've got a good positive association with it then because I'm always in good form when I do it.
That's good. I've just realized I had one question on the other page, which is a listener question. I'll make that the last one was how do you, when someone's, if you getting them to run easier, or you've identified that they need to run easier, and I'm making the question a little bit longer, but how do you slow them down? Do you just say run 20 seconds to what you're jogging with, or do you just say, and basically the question was, how do you slow someone down from jogging? Do you just say run easier like an RPE, or run 20 seconds less than what's comfortable, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so if I'm doing it from a clinical point of view, then I pretty much ignore RPEs. So I'm probably looking more at raw pace because I'm thinking I've got my more like mechanical hat on. So I don't really want people to like all of a sudden start getting fitter, being at that RPE and then starting to run faster again because like sometimes your tissues don't really know if you're fit or not, kind of thing. So like specifically if you're doing like other complementary work for them too. So I always try to, from a therapy point of view, I always prescribe pace. I usually start with, for jogs anyway, I'll add 30 seconds on to the jog, unless they're absolutely flogging themselves. A general rule of thumb is I add 30 seconds on per kilometer to their jogging pace. And then if they're not getting a great response from that, I'll add another 20 to 30 on. I find if you go too far with it, they like, because they never run that slow, like it throws their economy out and they just don't really know what they're doing. Like even if you've spent months running, say at 5-minute K pace, even if I slow that runner down to 5:30, it still feels a little bit foreign to them. So if I then told them to go run at say like 6:30s, they're just like, this doesn't feel like running anymore.
Yeah.
And they're kind of just like, yeah, they don't really love the buy-in and the treatment intervention too much from there. Unless I really need to, I'll try to avoid that. But usually I find 30 seconds per kilometer has a pretty good therapeutic effect from offloading structures and getting people to keep going.
Yeah, cool. All right, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. What's next? Are you heading overseas, or what's the plan for the next kind of 12 months or this year?
Yeah. So I got a confirmed start in a race in Japan, the Seiko Golden Grand Prix. Yeah.
Nice,
So
good.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that one. It'll be the first time back in Japan since the Olympics.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to getting back there. Other than that, I'm racing in Melbourne in a few weeks at Run the Town. And then I'm going to go to Europe in June for about 3 months to qualify for world. I'll try and qualify for world champs, and then also the window opens in July to open for Paris Olympics as well. So if I can kind of kill two birds with one stone while I'm over there, that would be fantastic. But the first goal is to at least kind of take world champs, qualify for that, go run that. And then put myself in a good position for the Olympics after that. Yeah. So
cool.
Again, big thanks to Nita for giving that flexibility.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Are you two questions? Hopefully in there somewhere, it'd be awesome if you could come up to Newcastle and maybe do a park run with me. Tom Nicano said he might come up. I don't think he's ever gonna, because he runs about 2 minutes quicker per K than me on average. And otherwise, are you going to do any more longer stuff like half marathon? I know you did Melbourne half marathon and things like that.
There's two parts to that question. I actually used to come up to Newcastle pretty regularly because they used to have Hunter Track Classic up there. Like not that long ago. Like when was the last time Hunter Track Classic was up there? They've canned it off the program now, but that's a great meet.
We'll have to get it straight back up. We'll have to get it up again.
Yeah, and I used to run with a guy up there a lot, Guy Walters, who trains with.
I've seen it. He's got the Strava record at Newey Park Run. He's a bit of a celebrity. I always looking at the Strava segments when I'm at home, and I'm like, this guy's good. He's quick.
Yeah. So I used to get along really well with him when we were younger, and so he lives in Newcastle. He trains with Scotty West, or used to anyway. Trains Scotty Westcott. And so I used to come up there a fair bit, just visit him and train with Scotty, and then sometimes do Hunter Track Classic pretty regularly. But then we grow up and then we get like real jobs, and so we can't just travel whenever we want. And as well, they can't Hunter Track Classic. So there's unfortunately less to come up for these days. So, but maybe I'll just come up and visit you and do a park run.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Two parts of that question though. So in terms of road stuff, certainly after I come back from overseas, I'll do a couple of road races. I guess a smaller goal, just if it works, is there's the World Half Marathon Champs, I think in Vienna at the end of the year. So if I can get a half marathon out and get qualified for that, I probably wouldn't say no to that trip. Where would
That's
I
cool.
do it? Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly which one. Probably Melbourne if I'm back
Yeah.
for it. Just from a timing point of view, I think would be okay. But I haven't really looked at the road season too much. I just want to get through the track season first at the moment. Yeah, it's pretty dynamic going to Europe for track. Like it's not kind of as straightforward as entering road races. Is you have to kind of sometimes you get invited and then you have to like enter and then you don't really get told sometimes until last minute if you're going to get a run or not. So
Oh, that's
it's
frustrating.
from a planning point of view, it's a headache. Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. I know it'll, by the time this episode comes out, and I certainly can't entice you. However, I could have a half marathon on the books. It's in Newcastle and it's in 2 days. If you want to fly out, you probably would take out the win by 20 minutes, but no, I can't entice you for that. Maybe we'll get you next year or the year after.
Which one's that?
The Newcastle half marathon. It's one of the biggest half marathons in the world. No, I'm joking, but it did sell out in Newcastle. It did sell out. They had this.
Is that hilly?
Yeah, well, they had this massive hill in it, right? And then they took it out, and now the whole thing sold out. So it's been everyone like so it's been should be good. But I'm going to race on the weekend. It's like Newcastle's only running event, which will be cool. Yeah,
everyone wants to run fast now. Hey, like I feel like if you're into like the super hilly, really challenging courses, you just go do like trail runs. Like I feel like that's kind of their own world.
Yeah, don't look at elevation.
Yeah, and then
you didn't really run quick.
Yeah, but then like I feel like if you go to the roads, like no one really wants to go to, at least recreation wise, no one really wants to go to the roads and run a tough course. Everyone wants to go run a PB.
Yeah.
So yeah. So they're all looking for like how many like turns does it have? Hopefully like very little and hopefully no hills as well.
Yeah, net downhill. Isn't there like a net downhill marathon in America or something?
Yeah.
Something there's a big one that people
run.
There's
a couple.
Yeah.
Is it Boston coming up? Slightly net downhill, or is it New York? Oh no, New York's not.
Maybe it's London.
Oh gosh, I'm not going to incriminate myself and say the wrong thing here. That'll be a question
someone's
for
like,
Adam.
I'm going to sign up for that, and they get there, and it's just like this, up and down.
Yeah. Well, that was one of them. The one I'm thinking of. Remember Brett Robinson and Jack Rayner did it one year, and I think supposedly it's net downhill, but it's quite hilly. I can't remember which one they did. I can't remember if it was New York or Boston. I think it was one of them.
Yeah, cool. All right, mate, we'll let you go. Lovely to talk to you. Have a lovely week in clinic, and we'll talk soon. Catch you later.
Thanks very much. You too. Take it easy, mate. Thanks for